Recording in progress.
Good evening, everybody. This is the regular meeting of the Hollister Planning Commission on 6/26/2025. I will call this meeting to order at 6 p.m. exactly. Staff, please call roll.
Vice Chair Carla Torres de Luna. Here. Commissioner Damian Perez is absent today. Commissioner Hani Maizuni.
Here.
Chair Stephen Vallone.
Present. And I'll lead the pledge tonight, if you don't mind. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I'm going to move on to item number 4, public input for items not on the agenda. This is the time for anyone in the audience to speak on any item not on the agenda and within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission. Speaker cards are available in the lobby and are to be completed and given to staff before speaking. When the commission secretary calls your name, please come to the podium, state your name and city for the record, and speak to the commission. If you are joining us by Zoom, please click on the bottom of your screen to raise your hand. If you are joining us by Zoom using cell phone, please press *9. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes with a maximum of 30 minutes per subject. Please note that state law prohibits the commission from discussing or taking action on any item not on the agenda. Staff, do we have any public comments?
No, we have no speaker cards.
Thank you, and we'll move on to item number 5, consent agenda. Do you have any questions from the commission on items on the consent agenda, or are there any items that the commission would like to pull for further discussion? Hearing none. Staff, do we have any public comments on items from the consent agenda?
No, we have no public comments. I do want to remind everybody to please turn on their microphone. Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we improve our consent items.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0. We will move on to item number 6, 6.1. Staff, may we have the report?
Tonight, you're reviewing a conditional use permit for a sports bar and billiard hall located in our downtown at 510 San Benito Street. The location is shown on the map before you. It is within our downtown, and there are a variety of restaurants, bars, and retail establishments surrounding the location of this establishment. The proposed business will sell beer and wine, and that's the reason that a conditional use permit is required. Alcohol sales in the city of Hollister in a bar do require a conditional use permit. The interior of the business will have televisions, billiard tables, a bar, and music. They will serve limited food and snacks. It is very limited. There's no, let's say, commercial kitchen. The proposed hours are Monday through Thursday, 2 o'clock p.m. to 2 o'clock a.m., and 12 o'clock p.m. and Friday through Sunday, 12 o'clock p.m. to 2 o'clock a.m. And they have stated in their applicant statement that they will employ a security guard to ensure that there are no problems at the site and there is no underage drinking. Because this use involves alcohol sales with very limited food, staff has included several conditions of approval to ensure that the use does not impact the surrounding neighborhood. Those conditions are prohibiting signage or displays of the type of alcohol that's sold on the premise. They need to regularly check the parklet area and surrounding the business to clean up to ensure that there's no debris or mess left behind. The business needs to prevent loitering at the entrance. All employees are required to be trained for service to 21 and over. Signage shall be prominently displayed noting that only 21 and over may enter the establishment, and surveillance cameras are required to be installed and operated at all times. There is an existing parklet out in front of the business. The applicant has entered into an agreement with the city to move this parklet and share it with a neighboring business. However, their current ABC license does not allow for the sale or consumption of alcohol in the parklet. They will need to obtain additional licensing from ABC prior to service on the parklet. We have included additional conditions of approval, again, to ensure that the parklet does not become a nuisance. Condition of approval number 16 would require that once approved by ABC, or if approved by ABC, that alcohol may only be served to those patrons who are also purchasing food items. And service on the parklet must end at 10 to ensure that there's no noise. There are surrounding residences in the area. The project is exempt from CEQA because it is an existing facility and it's located within a developed area and meets the requirements of the zoning ordinance. In conclusion, the proposed use of the space is consistent with the uses in the downtown area and the uses surrounding this site. Conditions of approval have been included to ensure that the establishment will not create any impacts on the surrounding area. And the site is located within the city's parking assessment district, and no off-street parking is required for this establishment. You do have 4 options for you tonight. One is to adopt a resolution approving the conditional use permit. The second would be to amend the conditions of approval and adopt the amended resolution. The third would be to deny the project. And the fourth is to continue the item if you had any if you needed any additional clarification or information. Staff is recommending that you adopt a resolution approving the conditional use permit for this establishment.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the commission?
So I have a question. The conditions that you put through, is there a timeline on that?
So most of the conditions are immediate, so they do need to follow with the signage. They need to do all this immediately. The business is open right now.
And the service camera, the surveillance
yes,
camera?
the cameras,
That would be done before
yes.
they start serving?
Well, they are already serving. They're already there. So this
Okay.
is a legalization. But they do need to do this per their conditions. I can't remember if the condition for the surveillance cameras might say 30 days, but I could be wrong. I don't have it in front of me. But they
So
do.
it's in progress?
Yes, so it is in progress, and the surveillance camera is a requirement of the police department, so they will be ensuring that that one is met.
Thank you.
I do have 2 questions. Well, first, I'm glad that we are supporting our local businesses, and I believe this is the one that was Bill's, was it the billiard,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, there was one there
Yeah,
before.
that was, so that's been a long time business, so I'm glad that there's somebody there. The thing you had about the signage, that they're not allowed to, no exterior signs displaying the sale or type of alcohol. Can you explain that to me?
So typically, we do not allow an advertisement for alcohol on the outside of a building.
Not like, oh, we're having a, 2-for-1 sale, blah, blah, blah. That's not allowed.
If you had, let's say, a sandwich board sign with a permit, because you need a permit, and you said on it 2-for-1, that's fine. But what
Okay.
we don't want is, and I am aware of 2, I found them today, like a big banner that says, "We sell Budweiser here." The city does not want that.
Okay, but a sandwich board with a permit, things like,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I just want to clarify. And then the surveillance cameras, where would those go?
They're on the outside at all the entrances and exits, and that's a requirement of the police department, so that they can monitor and have the recordings if they need it.
For all businesses?
Yeah, it's required for alcohol sales.
Thank you.
So you said on the exterior of the building, so surveillance doesn't need to be included for inside the building?
The police department didn't require that, no.
Okay. And then I had a question. I'm glad there's going to be a security guard there. Is that guard gonna be, do they need to have a California guard card in order to hold that position, or is it just an in-house employee, or,
I don't think they do. I've never heard that one, so.
okay.
But we do have the condition of approval that requires them to train all the employees on, and there's a training through ABC on monitoring and carding and 21 and over. So we've added that as a condition of approval that requires it.
Okay. Is there any further questions, staff? No?
Chairperson Belong, if I might just clarify, I just pulled the condition just to clarify, and it is 30 days, so the surveillance will be installed within 30 days of approval. And then the police's condition is security in interior areas open to the public as well as the exterior. So just
Sorry.
clarification. It's okay.
Thank you. And we will now open up public hearing at 6:11 p.m. Staff, do we have a presentation from the applicant on the item?
Do you want to speak? I understand we do have a presentation.
No, not for this one.
Okay.
But we do have the applicants. I don't know if they want to speak. Do you want to speak? It's being translated, so I think it's delayed.
Okay.
Oh, okay, we have someone.
Oh, bienvenidos.
Hello, my name is Marie LeBou Peterson. I am a member of Corf. How do I say it? I'm a resident of San Benito County. I live in the county, and I am very happy that this business is going to enhance downtown Hollister, because we don't have a lot of businesses, and I'd be just very grateful if you approve this project and let it go through, because I think we need it. I think this town is so small, we don't have a lot of stuff. So I just would really like to see it being approved. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any further public comments?
Si quieren decir algo, pueden venir al frente. Y puede decirlo en español, lo traducemos. I said if he wanted to come up, he could speak and we could translate.
Permítanos un momentito, vamos a poner un sistema de traducción. So, si nos permite tantito, ¿ok? Pero pase enfrente.
Gracias.
Ok, está bien, puede empezar.
Muy buenas tardes a todos. Me da mucho gusto estar aquí presente frente de personas como ustedes, que son las autoridades de Hollister. Me siento contento porque pues traemos sueños de crear negocio, de echarle ganas a la vida por los hijos, ¿me entiende? Entonces, quisiera pedirles que pues si nos aprueban esta oportunidad, nos dan esta oportunidad del negocio, queremos hacer este negocio algo bien para el pueblo, que se vengan, se diviertan, tomen una cerveza, una michelada, disfruten de una tostada de ceviche, no emborracharse, ¿verdad? Sino que disfrutar, ¿me entiende? Entonces, es nuestro plan del negocio. Entonces, yo estoy muy contento con la ciudad. Tenemos un negocio de breakfast, es el Hades Café. Entonces, este negocio allá es asociación mía y de mi suegra, entonces es con mi esposa. Pero tenemos planes de echarle muchas ganas a la vida. Y muchas gracias por la oportunidad y estamos muy contentos aquí en Hollister.
Gracias.
Thank you. I will now close public hearing at 6:14 if there's no more speakers. Okay, hearing none. Is there any further discussion from the commission on this item?
I think just, you know, that we want to support small business y muchas gracias y buena suerte en su negocio. And I think too, many of us who live here and those that have moved in talk about there's not enough to do in Hollister, right? And so this is another option for people to go to and you know, enjoy downtown. Es bueno tener opciones a donde ir y pasarla bien, ¿verdad? So I think it's a good thing. Thank you. And can I make a motion? Or not yet?
Commissioner Mizzuni, do you have any comments? No? Yeah? So, I'll entertain a motion.
Can I make a motion? We adopt a resolution approving a conditional use permit, CUP 2025-2 with the findings and conditions contained in the draft resolution.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And the motion passes 3-0. Congratulations.
Felicidades, muchas gracias. Al rato los visitamos.
Okay, we'll be moving on to item 6.2, the Heritage Plaza Master Sign Plan. Staff, may we have the report?
And just before Erica gets started, just really quickly, just for the record, that resolution will be 2025-17 for the previous item.
Heritage Plaza is located at 1701 to 1715 Airline Highway. If this sounds familiar, it is because you just reviewed a master sign program amendment for Brass Tap in the same shopping center that we needed to approve while the applicant or property owner was working on the master sign program for the entirety of the shopping center. The entirety of the shopping center is undergoing a facade remodel. With the facade remodel, the existing master sign program doesn't work. With the new look, feel, and size of the facade for each of the tenant spaces, so they needed to update it to allow for signage for the new design. The master sign program will be split into two pieces. One is for major tenants. Major tenants are tenants that are greater than 4,000 square feet, so such as Rite Aid. They are allowed to have one large wall size, which can be 20 feet by 4 feet 6 inches. And as you can see, that size fits within the facade for a major tenant. And they can have the secondary wall sign, which can be 12 feet by 2 feet. For minor tenants, our smaller tenants in the center, they can have one wall sign, which can be 12 feet by 2 feet 6 inches, and that fits again within their smaller facade above their entryway. And then they can have one small sign above their entry door. This project is exempt from CEQA because it is an existing facility and does not propose any development. And staff is recommending approval of the master sign program as it fits in well with the proposed or approved facade currently underway. The signs fit in well with the wall in which they are located, and they will have cohesive colors and materials. The Planning Commission does have 4 options again. You can adopt a resolution approving this master sign program, which does take away the old master sign program as part of the conditions of approval. You can adopt a resolution with conditions modified by the Planning Commission. You can deny the proposed master sign program, or you can continue the hearing if you chose to do so. Staff is recommending that you select option 1 and adopt a resolution approving the master sign program as proposed.
Thank you. And do we have any questions for staff?
I have no question.
I do. I have a question on the Rite Aid, since it's not, is that just a sample of what it is? But
That's just an example
An
of
example.
what the, let's say, large wall sign would look
Okay.
like for a major tenant. That's just an example, one of the major tenants out there.
and so let's say in the event another business goes in and then they leave, is there an easy way to?
Yeah, they can pop it
replace?
off, and then they
Okay.
put in a new one with their sign face that meets the size dimensions as well as the material requirements within the master sign program. You do see quite often that signs get replaced quite frequently as tenants change in and out, or their corporate branding changes and the signs will get changed. They do need a permit before they change out signs, though, because we check their administrative permit review against the master sign program to make sure that it meets the requirements.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then I do see lighting above, so these signs won't be illuminated other than the lighting on
They
the
have
top?
that, yes, they do have the lighting that you see, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any further questions for staff? Okay. Well, thank you. And I'll open up public hearing at 6:19.
The applicant does have a presentation.
Good evening, Chair and members of the Commission and staff. My name is Mike Nino. I'm here tonight with my wife, Tracy. This is going to be a little bit redundant, so I can just shoot through it real quick. If I can figure out how to use this thing. And where do I go to the next slide?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
if you point to Brendan, he'll.
Okay. Heritage Plaza was purchased in 2018. It's comprised of many retail shops, including restaurants, a drugstore, auto supply, bank ATM location, dry cleaners, etc. We've been working on revitalizing the shopping center with fresh paint, new lighting, benches, garbage cans, and refreshing the landscaping. A large architectural facade change is approved and permitted, and construction has begun recently. Next slide. So this is kind of what we're dealing with right now. And we'd kind of like to upgrade that and make it look a little bit better. So in keeping with the major renovation to the building facades, the tenant signage guidelines are being updated in order to achieve a more pleasing, uniform, and appropriate look and feel consistent with the colors and styles of the new remodel. And as was mentioned before, there's actually three different kind of components of this. One, the wall signs for major tenants, that's 4,000 square feet or more, which include Rite Aid, or used to be Rite Aid, O'Reilly's, let's see, who else is there? Brass Tap and Goodwill. And those are the ones that have the big lit up signs above. And then in the other building, the wall signs for the other tenants, there'll be one large wall sign and one sign above the door. And the reason for that is the sign opportunities above don't always line up exactly with, so we'll have a spot so that they can be seen from afar, but when you walk in, there'll be one that's above the door. Kind of similar to how it is now, but hopefully a little bit better looking than that. And then there'll be the large monument signs, and we can get into that in a second. So if we go to the next slide here, or the next one. Okay, so that's the major tenants, 4,000 feet and above. And then the next slide. This is a example of what it's going to look like in the smaller building. That Catch 25 seafood and more, that would be up above on the facade. And then the Catch 20, the smaller sign would be right above the door as you walk in. We can go to the next slide. As I just mentioned, large signs to be placed as shown above the roof line. Due to the tenant space arrangements, the large sign may not always appear directly above the tenant's entry door. Thus, the tenants also have a smaller sign placed under the porch directly above their entry door. You can't see the smaller signs because they're behind the roof, but that's the look. Next sign. And then also we want to update. There is a monument sign on the corner, and it's already there, part of the old signage program. And we want to update that and change the colors and make it look a little bit nicer. Next slide. Our plan is to update the signage program with the fresh, cohesive new look. Included are lit cabinet signs for the 4 national retailers using the required logos and colors. Smaller retails will have standardized wood-like signs. All tenants must comply with the master sign program. And to answer one of your questions earlier, the major tenants, those signs are backlit. The other ones, they have spotlights that shine on each one. Okay? And then the last slide. Looking forward, Heritage Plaza renovation has started on the architectural facades. With those changes happening, we would like to move forward with our updated master sign program as quickly as possible. We do have new retailers waiting for this MSP approval so they can apply for their own signage. So that's what we're up to, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions from the commission?
I do have one. On the wooden signs, is it just the standard wooden sign, or can people add their own color or style?
No. It's a wood-like sign, something that's a little bit more resistant to the weather.
Okay.
I guess, and my wife will correct me on this as she normally does. I guess there might be some latitude as far as the font and that sort of thing, but standard. It's pretty standard and cohesive.
Very standardized. We're looking for a real classy kind of high-end look, so they're very standardized, and they're 12 feet, so they're getting about twice as much exposure as they've had in the past.
Okay. Okay. Well-
It's all framed up, so you can go by and kind of see how different it looks.
Nice. Well, thank you for doing that work. It's nice to see our city trying to, make everything look better.
We're
In
excited.
a long time, right?
We're excited about it, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I don't have any, but I want to echo the same sentiments. Thank you for sprucing up the community, and it's I think it's going to look great. So,
Perfect. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
staff, do we have any public comments on this item?
We do not have any other public comments.
Okay, with that being said, I will now close the public hearing at 6:26 p.m. Is there any further discussion from the commission? Okay, well, that leaves one thing to do. Would somebody like to make a motion?
Yes, let's make a motion. We adopt the resolution approving MSP 2025-1, subject, is that right? Subject to the findings and conditions of approval contained in the draft resolution.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And the motion passes with a 3-0.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Can't wait to see it.
Okay, we will move on to agenda item number 7, commission business, 7.1, zoning ordinance amendment study session, legislative updates and use, and definitions cleanup. Staff, may we have the report?
To give you a little bit of background, this cleanup is part of staff's overall goal to overhaul the existing zoning ordinance. The amendments that we're proposing tonight will provide clarity for the city and the public while we continue to work on the overhaul. And just to kind of go over what the plan is for our overhaul, phase 1 was edits to the zoning ordinance for consistency with state law, and staff has done, well, had thought we had completed phase 1. We amended the density bonus ordinance. We amended the accessory dwelling unit ordinance. We had a few other cleanup items for consistency with state law, and then state law changed again, so we're kind of back at phase 1. So phase 1 is going to be an ongoing phase. Phase 2 is tonight. It's edits to the use tables and definitions, and we feel that this is an important step in the overall goal of making the zoning ordinance easier to understand for the public as well as staff. Once phase 2 is complete, phase 3 will be the overhaul of the permitting requirements, and then phase 4 will be the remainder of the zoning ordinance. So the purpose of tonight is I have given you a lot of information in your agenda packet, and staff would like to receive feedback from you on the proposed amendments. We are proposing amendments to comply with state law. We are proposing amendments to provide additional definitions in our definition section to support the listed permitted and conditionally permitted uses. Right now, there are a number of uses that are listed, but then there is no definition. So it's hard to determine what exactly that use is intended for. There are some amendments to ensure that residential dwellings are included within mixed-use developments, and we have made some amendments for consistency between the use tables and the different sections of the code. And since there is a lot to go over tonight, feel free to interrupt me at any point with questions, comments, or anything that you have. I don't want it to get too far and then we kind of forget where we're at. Feel free to interrupt as we go along, because there is a lot. So pursuant to state law, we had some recent amendments to accessory dwelling units, and because of that, in our 2-unit developments and urban lot split chapter, we have to make a minor amendment to change the reference to the government code that is referenced for the accessory dwelling units in that chapter. Senate Bill 477 moved the previous regulations for accessory dwelling units to a different area within the government code, so now there are new section numbers. So for our accessory dwelling unit chapter, the state has passed several bills that required amendments to the accessory dwelling unit section. Again, we need to change the references to the government code as that was moved around. Multifamily properties can now construct up to 8 dwelling units, or 8 accessory dwelling units per, let's say, multifamily project, and we needed to amend the code to reflect that. Cities are no longer allowed to require owner occupancy. Previously, that was allowed, and then the state did not allow it for a specific amount of time, and they've now changed it so that owner occupancy is no longer, we can no longer require owner occupancy for ADUs. For junior accessory dwelling units, we can continue to do so. ADUs which follow specific requirements may be sold separately from the primary dwelling. And then staff has, based on using the regulations for the last, let's say, 2 years, had a few minor amendments to make it more clear for staff and the public when processing accessory dwelling units. We did receive a letter today regarding the proposed amendments to the accessory dwelling units. We just got it right before this meeting, so staff really hasn't had a time to go over what they have in the letter, but we will, since this is a study session, no decisions to be made tonight. We will review it, and then if we need to address anything within the accessory dwelling unit chapter, we will.
I had a quick question, because I may have missed it, but do JADUs have the same requirements as an ADU as far as like what's required, bathroom and or sanitation room?
So JADUs are different from ADUs in the sense that a JADU has to be the conversion of an interior space, and usually they're in the garage. And they are required to have the sleeping area, a cooking area, but they can share a bathroom with the interior of the house, but only if there is a door leading directly from the interior of the JADU into the primary dwelling unit. So like I couldn't have a side door in my garage and then then the person has to go out and come through a sliding glass door. That's not allowed. It has to be directly into the unit. And they are limited to 500 square feet in size unless they need an entryway, and then they can have square footage just for that entryway, but they are limited to 500 square feet in size, and they cannot be sold, they cannot be conveyed separately from the house. And with a JADU, you are required to have owner occupancy of either the JADU or the main house.
All right. Thank you.
So if anyone had any other questions on ADUs, but we will review the letter, and then if we do need to adjust anything, we'll discuss it during a public hearing, or the public hearing. The state also amended our density bonus regulations, so several amendments have come into play. There are amendments to required concessions that we needed to follow. There is an amendment to how density is to be calculated in a mixed use development, and it was updated to address that. There is now a requirement for a density bonus for shared housing. There were modifications to the definition of what a student housing development was, and there are modifications to what developments qualify as senior housing, and this chapter has been updated to address all of those new requirements from the state. So for these requirements that I've mentioned for accessory dwelling units and density bonus, these are requirements by the state. Even if our code was to be non-compliant, we still have to follow the state's rules. One area that the zoning ordinance did not comply with state law was for religious assembly. Churches and places of worship are regulated by the Religious Land Use and Protection Act. And basically what the requirement is that a city is required to allow religious assemblies similar to other gathering use types. So clubs and lodges are considering a gathering type. They need to have the same permitting requirements as a church or a place of worship. And there were several areas within our code where we did not comply with that requirement. So as part of the use table update, we've updated the use tables to comply with state law. The bulk of the amendments tonight are to the use tables. One of the overall additions that we needed to make was there are several uses that are required by the state that were either not included or were left blank within the use tables. So for example, we are required to allow emergency shelters. We are required to allow supportive and transitional housing. Unfortunately, transitional housing was on the use table, but there was no permitting requirement. It was just left blank as to whether or not it was allowed or not allowed. Now, we know what the requirements are, staff follows it, but we like to be transparent and we want to make it easier on everyone. So some of these fixes we've included with this update. Most of the amendments that we've made to these use tables relate to clarity. So we have, let's say, commercial use types and industrial use types, and some of the titles of the uses were different on each of the use tables. So we didn't have consistent ways we were referring to things. So we tried to clean those up so they're consistent across the board. That way we can also have one consistent definition, so there's no room for error. There, within our existing use tables, we have a requirement for an SNA for some uses. An SNA is for a new building, so it didn't really apply to those uses. That meant they were mostly permitted. So we have removed that requirement. And again, there were some inconsistencies between the tables, and so we've tried to fix them all and remove sort of redundancies.
What's an SNA?
Site and architecture review. So when you see a brand new building, for example, like when we looked at Zero Shelton, that was an SNA. But for some reason, our use table, we were listing that for use. I think they meant that if it was brand new, you would need an SNA, but it's a little confusing, so we've eliminated that confusion.
Yes, and if I might add, the goal of this amendment to the use tables is really to identify what uses are permitted. Just they don't require any sort of review of the uses. Like we just reviewed a conditional use permit where we wanted to make sure that use followed specific rules while it was active. Or if we can do that administrative kind of use review or a conditional use review. And then like Erica's saying, the actual design review, site and architectural review, or sometimes we need an administrative design review is a different, and that depends on if you're doing like site development or facade changes or something. So they're kind of two separate things, and our current tables merge them a little bit, and it's confusing.
Thank you.
And with phase 3, which will start right after we finish this, we're going to clean up the permitting requirements. So between that cleanup and this, it'll be so much easier for both staff and the public to really understand what's permitted, what's conditionally permitted, what does this use mean? I can look it up very easy, and what permit might I need? And if I do need a permit, how does that permit work? What's the process? So we're trying to make it so much easier for everyone involved to use the zoning ordinance. I know right now it's very hard for a number of people. For residential uses, some of the biggest changes that we've made, aside from the fixing titles, making sure that, and above, for all the use tables, you know, for example, we would have a use and there would be no definition. So where there was a use and there was no definition before, we've added the definition. Where there was a use that use was called something different on every use table, we've changed it so they all now share the same name, so they all share the same definition. Where a use may be in there several times, we've eliminated the redundancy just to really try to clean up the use tables. But for residential uses, again, we fixed supportive housing. It was left blank. That's required by state law. We are required to allow it. So we fixed the use requirements for that. We changed the permitting requirements for family daycares. The state requires no permit for anything under 14. The zoning ordinance currently follows a very old code prior to 2008 when cities could require permits for family daycares. We can no longer do so, so we've cleaned that up on the table. We have added community care facilities. So a community care facility would be anything such as a sober living facility, adult help, any sort of facility used to aid another person. That's required by state. There is a definition again, since we've added it, and we've added the permitting or the use requirements, what requires a conditional use permit and what doesn't, to be consistent with state law. And then at the end of this table, and then in much of the other tables, there was an extensive list of notes. And so now, because we've added definitions for most of these uses, we've taken the notes and put them into the definition, so it's not confusing. Some of them had multiple notes attached to them, and so you would have to read through several notes. We've taken all those notes where we could, some we could not. But where we could, we took all those notes and added them to the definition, so they're all right together. You only have to read one little section, and then you know what the rules are that pertains to your use. For home office, it's just minor amendments, but what we are proposing, what's in your packet, is right now we list it out kind of as a 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're proposing to change that into a table to match all the other use tables, and a table is much easier to read than the way it is now. For commercial and mixed uses, this one had, I think, the most changes, where you can see with the red lines, because we had a number of uses that could have been one use, but there were instead 10 within the use list, and then 10 definitions that all looked the same. So we combined them where we could. We added tasting rooms as a permitted use. Previously, it required a conditional use permit. We've made it a permitted use. Again, we changed religious assemblies to be consistent with state law. We did add bail bonds as a use. And then again, there is the deletion of notes. We added those notes. We didn't just delete them. We took the notes and added them to the definition, so that people only have to look in one spot rather than scattering between definitions, several notes within a table, and the use. And then at the beginning of this table, there was a section that listed permitting requirements for uses, and it was very confusing. And the trouble with having a use table, a section that describes permitting requirements, and then a chapter that describes permitting requirements is you tend to have inconsistencies between all three. So we've eliminated that section. All those permitting requirements were already covered under a previous section. For industrial uses, again, we needed to delete some of the uses and combine some. So there weren't so many uses listed that were actually the same thing. We added a lot of definitions so the definition title tags to that definition name. We renamed recreation types, because there was several different types of recreation types included within that section scattered about. There was outdoor, there was fitness and health clubs, and then there was different recreation centers of different sizes, so it was very confusing. So we switched them all into we switched them to indoor, major, and minor, and then outdoor, and so they're all together in one spot on the use list, so it's a little bit less confusing. And then again, at the beginning, permitting requirements, which we're recommending be deleted, they're covered in another section. The airport zone districts, again, the same. There were many uses that were redundant. We took them out. There were a few use titles that were confusing, so we altered the use title to make a little bit more sense. Most of these uses did not have definitions. So with this one, we added a significant number of definitions to define what those use types were that were both existing and then the ones that we've changed. We did add some additional use types to allow for items that would be most likely in an airport, such as terminals, runways, all as permitted uses. There was some uses that you would find in an airport were conditional uses, which doesn't make a lot of sense since the airport's permitted. So we changed some of those so that we didn't have that sort of I guess, weird area between things that we already have and things that required a conditional use permit that are within an airport and are standard to an airport. Again, we had a lot of notes. We cleaned up the notes and added them where appropriate. Open space, park, and public facilities do not have too many changes, but again, we just, for consistency, use names across the board, they all get switched into the same use name. So for example, like public utilities and facilities had a different name in all three use tables. So we made it one name in all three use tables so that no one got confused. It's just kind of a weird quirk of the code. Definitions, again, had a lot of changes to them, and they are shown in the attachments that we gave you with the deleted text shown in red with strike through, and then the new text bold and underlined. The definitions that we've added are for clarity and to really clarify what is in those use tables. We currently do have a number of problems where someone requests a use, they pick a use on the use table, and there's no definition, and it's hard to really tell them whether or not their use does fit within that category. There's also some gray area where we have uses defined, but they're not clear enough, where we have a hard time helping the public with what they want to do. And so what we've done is try to clean up most of the definitions so they do make sense and do cover the uses that we find in the city, and then add definitions to tell the story of what that use on the use list really means to the public. And then some edits were made for clarity. There might have been some weird wording, and we just did a minor change. And where possible, and where you see a lot of the large deletions within the document that you have, you'll have, for example, like a manufacturing, and it will in bullets list 30 different items. But then in those items, they have a definition that gets tagged. There's a definition that's tagged to them. They are really all the same thing. And so we tried to bring them all together so that we didn't have so many uses on the use tables. And we didn't have so many very long definitions then that required you to look at other definitions. We are requesting the deletion of a section within the code, and it is a very long section. Right now, we currently have all of our requirements for project sign notifications within the code. So it details what must be on the sign, how they are to submit it to staff, how they get it approved by staff. It's very long. The problem with that is if staff wants to change it, we cannot, because it's within the code. And usually with a project sign notification, as the city grows or changes, you want to change those requirements to better, as the world changes and we have different ways of sharing information, you want to be able to update those requirements quite frequently. And right now we can't. So we're requesting that long section be deleted and replaced, and we have new draft public sign notification requirements ready to go if it gets adopted, that I think will be a better sign and will require the sign to go out actually earlier than it does now so that people are notified earlier of a project. For our mixed use zoning districts, the city does not currently in the zoning ordinance have a requirement for housing to be constructed as part of a mixed use zoning district. And this has led to concerns because we use our mixed use land zone mixed use as part of our RENA numbers. So we use that land to show that we can build housing to support the RENA numbers that are allocated to us. Many of these sites are also identified as housing sites within our housing element, but what we have found is because it is mixed use, and there is no requirement for housing, we have applications for strictly commercial in a mixed use. So it doesn't become mixed use, it's just a commercial project. And so because of that, and we don't want to lose any of our housing sites or pull us further out of compliance with our RENA numbers, we're proposing to amend the zoning ordinance to state that when there is a mixed use development, that it has to include residential. And so therefore we can ensure that we capture the residential dwellings that we are required to allow within the city or construct. So if there's any more comments, questions, or anything, I'd be happy to answer them. But as far as next steps goes, any feedback that I get tonight from you or based on what we read in the letter we did receive today, we are going to make further amendments to the zoning ordinance. We will then prepare final amendments for you to review during a public hearing. It'll be a notice public hearing. One of the reasons I couldn't do it today is just in case you had changes, is that we are going to reformat the use tables, because even the formatting between the use tables is all different. So we'd like them to all be the same. And then I'm going to reformat the definitions section, because that formatting is not consistent from page to page. So we will be doing a repeal and replace of the use tables and the definition section. But we really do want everything to be easy to read and have a consistent formatting throughout these things that we're amending today. We are aware that once we change some of the things within this section, within these sections of the zoning ordinance, that there is a potential for some inconsistency with the rest of the zoning ordinance. We are aware, but we are trying to move the zoning ordinance along, so hopefully those inconsistencies won't last too long, but we are aware that they're there. It's just too much to do everything all at once at this time. That's all I have, but if you have any questions, any other amendments you'd like to see, any thoughts you want us, or further research you want us to look at, please let us know.
Couple questions. One is that, is there any negative impact on anybody else out there that they might come back and sue us based on these changes?
I guess what I would say is anyone who is, has a permit is going to be subject to the code as it is right now. And then anyone who wants to apply for a permit after the new code is adopted is subject to those codes. So I guess if
there's nobody in between, you're saying?
No, there would be no one in between. Like
Okay.
there's a date at which this becomes effective, and then, so no one would be kind of caught in the middle if that's what you're worried about.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's, okay.
So if we change, for example, a use to a conditional use permit, and they have been operating and they didn't need one before, when the code switches over, they're legal non-conforming, they can be their use for as long as they want to be without having to come in. It won't require them to come in the next day and apply for a conditional use permit. They get to be as they are.
Okay. The second question, for all the changes you made, did we consult with anybody outside the department or outside the county? Like, some places consult with Gartner, consult with like a third party, just to confirm what we following, all the changes we're making, or did we, legally, we legally approved it?
Yeah, so the city attorney will always review all ordinance amendments before they're implemented.
And it has been approved by you?
Yes. I mean, I have not, I will say, reviewed all of these in details at this time, but these have been in progress for a while, and we've been reviewing them over time, if that.
But we did
sense.
not get any outside advisor, just to confirm.
Do you mean like if we hired a planning company to look into it? So I am a contract employee from another company, and the reason that this, I think, to be honest, works better than hiring a consultant that doesn't know the city to overhaul is that you will have quirks in the code that do not meet your needs, and they don't understand the city as well as, Eva or I or the other planners do, because we work here and we do projects. So we know the problems within the code. We know what we need to make it easier for the public that we deal with. I have dealt with other firms writing a zoning ordinance for a city that I worked for, and there were problems afterwards because they just didn't understand how the city worked and the needs of the residents. So I have done zoning ordinance overhauls before, and Eve and I have worked on this together to make sure that we're meeting the needs of this community.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question on the mixed dwellings where I think the change was to require a housing element. I think it was like 2 slides before.
So,
I just want to understand it. So the way staff proposing to amend to require housing and mixed use. So.
Yes, so I could read this section. So again, right now, you can build just commercial or you can build just residential in a mixed-use zoning district, but what we're seeing is requests for only commercial on a residential on a mixed-use site. And what that means is if let's say that site was supposed to give us 20 housing units and it is just commercial, now I have 20 housing units out of my RENA numbers that now I don't meet what we told the state we are going to provide. So that's a concern with staff. It's also a concern where these are listed in the housing element as we are going to provide housing, but there is no requirement that housing gets built on the site. And I would give a 99% chance that when the state reviews the housing element, they will say we have to address it.
So
But
this
what
is
we're
kind of getting ahead of.
Yeah, what we're proposing is that it says mixed-use districts are intended to provide both commercial and residential uses on one property or development to support the needs of the city and ensure that housing is constructed to meet the city's regional housing needs assessment and provide a mix of housing types for the community. All mixed-use projects are required to provide residential dwellings that meet the city's required density for that designation in addition to commercial space. So we can truly have mixed use.
Thank you. And it looks like you all have done a lot of work on this, and I want to, acknowledge that. And necessary, right? Because I also hear a lot of feedback of, well, I don't know, it's confusing, and what do we do? And it says this, and that has been, I think, a pain point for us. So I really appreciate this work to make it easier for us, for you all as a city, but also for the public.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I just had one, I guess I just needed further clarification. During your report, during the mixed use, you had said that we are out of compliance currently with our arena numbers?
Yes, so that's for the housing element. So the city's does not have a certified 6-cycle housing element. So that is a separate project that I'm leading with. We're working with Kimley Horn on that project to update our housing element. But right now we are out of compliance. But what Erica was saying is that when we have a housing site, so we have mixed use sites that are in our 5th cycle, so our previous housing element, and proposed in our draft 6th cycle, where we're telling the state this is a site for housing and its current designation is mixed use, like North Gateway, or not North Gateway, West Gateway, our neighborhood mixed use, or downtown mixed use. But then we're seeing development proposals where they don't provide housing that's meeting that number we told the state. And what you actually have to do if we approve those projects is we technically need to find another site to stay in compliance with our housing element. So we have to say, this site, we told you it was going to have 20, but we built it all commercial. Now we found another APN where we're putting those 20 instead. So you really get yourself into a bind when you have a limited number of physical pieces of property in the city where you can put housing. So we want to ensure that we're getting true mixed use on our mixed use pieces.
Are we currently meeting our arena numbers?
We are not meeting our arena numbers, but we are technically only 1 year into the 6th cycle. So we did submit and we did have some numbers. And I could probably find it. I could bring it back to you because I don't think I can find it on the internet right now. But I could bring you back the report for the housing for this last year that we reported on in 2024. But in the 5th cycle, we did not meet our arena. We met our market rate units, met and exceeded the number of market rate units, but we did not meet our affordable requirements in low, very low, or moderate income.
And I have a question for legal. What happens when we don't meet those requirements? What can the state take action on, or what would the action be?
So so when you don't have a certified housing element, for example, and when you don't meet your arena numbers, it really just takes away a lot of the city's ability to not approve housing. So I don't know if you've heard of like the builder's remedy, where it just gives a developer a lot more leniency in their ability to build a project that may not necessarily meet the city's code. I mean, it's not just, they can't just build anything anywhere. There are some restrictions, but it basically just kind of ties the hands of the city in terms of approving projects.
So the state just takes further control then of the...
Yeah, I mean, they only respond to complaints. So if the city insisted, for example, that someone couldn't build something that they probably should be allowed to do, then they might lodge a complaint with HCD or the Attorney General, and it's a whole legal process. But they just have it basically binds the city's hands in a lot of ways. And I mean, I would just say, and the city here is not unique. I think there was like 37 agencies that met their fifth cycle numbers, and out of like 400 or some. So they're not
Common.
Yeah, it's pretty common.
Thank you.
Then that, I have a follow-up on, so this requirement on the housing, is it specific to low income? And no, it's just,
So when we zone for housing, and we do have the inclusionary ordinance that requires the percentage of low and very low set aside. There's also a density bonus mechanism where people can give us affordable units depending on for sale. If it's for sale, you can have moderate, and then for apartments, it's only very low or low. You can also have very low or low for sale. And then the density bonus works in, you're going to give us affordable units, and we're going to give you incentives and concessions like the waiving of development standards and the waiving of like setbacks and other things. So there is that can hopefully help to build affordable housing. And then there is SB 35, where someone can propose a 100% affordable project, and they bypass, it becomes ministerial, so it's an easier path to approval if someone wanted to do that kind of project. So there are tools that can be used to encourage affordable housing.
and then just one more thing, an observation. So it's not like you all are making these changes on your own. You referenced state regulations and just compliance. So it's like a lot of cleanup that we have to do anyways, right?
Yeah, there's a number of things within the amendments that we're proposing are things that the state is just requiring, so that we just need to do it anyways. And if we didn't do it, we have a zoning ordinance that says one thing, and that's where it gets into, if I am a developer or a member of the public and I read a zoning ordinance and it tells me something, I think I follow that. But then and it's not one state law, it's several state laws. So you have to know where you're looking. It's just too hard. So that's why we like to have everything consistent with state law within the zoning ordinance, just to make it easier on maybe a new planner that's brand new, or the public that's not up to date with the world of density bonus law, just to make it so much easier for everyone.
Thank you.
Is there any further questions from the commission? Hearing none, I will open this item up for public comment at 7:02. Staff, do we have any public comments on this item?
We do not have any public comments.
So I will close public comment at 7:02. Is there any further discussion from the commission on this item?
No.
Hearing none, thank you for your hard work and everything that you're putting in. And we will move on to item 8.1, Planning Commission reports. Any reports from the commission?
Nope, not for me.
Hearing none, we will move on to item 8.2, Planning Division reports.
I don't believe I have any reports. Thank you.
Everyone wants to get off to the break, huh? So. Well, there's only one thing to do. I'll take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
I have a motion and
Second.
a second. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
This motion, the meeting is now adjourned at 7:03.
Thank you.
Thank you all. And we go dark in July, so we'll see you in August.